Now, This Week with Bob Mueller on News 2.
This week,
first, properly funding the police force. Second, I'm going to work tirelessly to lobby our state for common sense gun legislation.
a month until the Nashville mayoral election. Tonight, a conversation with former Alliance Bernstein COO, mayoral candidate Jim Gingrich.
But I think ultimately we're going to come out on top.
Courts kept busy as numerous recently passed laws are being challenged.
It's like, hey, we're going to give you something, but we're going to take something.
Challenges to a new state law that gives teachers pay raises, but also makes it harder for teacher unions to deduct dues.
So Tennessee definitely is greatly in need of rail service.
Tennessee takes another step toward the return of passenger rail service. More in a This Week cover story.
There is a huge pilot shortage in the United States. It's no secret.
And airlines rely on a little-known immigration policy to help with staffing shortages. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of This Week. With less than a month until Election Day, a conversation today with Nashville mayoral candidate Jim Gingrich. The courts are very busy dealing with challenges of controversial GOP-approved legislation, another push to restore passenger rail service here in Tennessee, and a little-known immigration policy is helping airlines deal with staffing shortages. But we begin with challenges to a teacher pay law increase that eliminates automatic teacher union dues deductions.
In a win for teachers, the legislature passed an incremental increase in salary over the next few years at the direction of Governor Bill Lee.
We know that we have a teacher shortage, and it's very important that we pay our teachers well and be able to recruit teachers, and those that are teaching in Tennessee be able to stay here and be paid well.
But with that increase, Lee and Republican lawmakers attached a section to prevent teacher unions from automatically deducting dues, angering both teachers and Democrats alike.
It's like a 1-2 punch, like, hey, we're going to give you something, but we're going to take something.
This governor wants to play those types of games with our teachers. I mean, he's, for 5 years now, he's shown complete disrespect for the teachers in public schools across the state of Tennessee. He's done everything he possibly can to decimate our public schools and undermine the entire teaching profession.
But now that anti-union piece is on hold. A 3-judge panel ruled it would have to at least wait until they could hold a hearing.
They didn't say this about any other state organization. Not a single one. It's just teachers. So in my mind, that's about a punitive piece of legislature.
I did reach out to the governor's office for comment. They declined, citing pending litigation, but did point to something the governor said in June.
The intent of that was to give teachers a pay raise and to make sure that taxpayer dollars are used appropriately and not used inappropriately, and that's what that bill is about.
But teachers say the raise wasn't enough, and it was a slap in the face to also tie in the anti-union section.
What they're giving us isn't even that great of a gift anyway. It's kind of like giving a 3-year-old a package of rubber bands for a birthday present.
The hearing for next steps is set for July 13th. In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
A new State Department report pins the blame on both the Trump and Biden administrations for how they handled the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan.
A newly released report says the State Department wasn't prepared for the collapse of the Afghan government as the U.S. withdrew in 2021.
This is a State Department report. Clearly, it is part of the administration. If that's what it lays out, that's what it lays out.
The report says the department failed to plan enough under both administrations, including after President Biden decided to follow through with a deal President Trump reached with the Taliban.
He had to make a tough decision on what to do with the nation's longest war.
The review also notes that giving Bagram Air Base to the Afghan government early on limited the U.S.'s ability to withdraw through the single remaining airport.
We're going to need to investigate decisions around Bagram Air Base.
On Fox News Sunday, Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss says while he still has questions, there was no good solution for ending a failed war.
The bigger mistake here would have been to keep troops in Afghanistan for another decade, another $1 trillion, more lives lost for a war that could not be won.
The blame for what happened here falls squarely on the current commander-in-chief.
Former Vice President Mike Pence told CBS's Face the Nation the prior administration did its job.
When the Taliban broke the deal and moved into Mazar al-Sharif, and Joe Biden did nothing, that set into motion the catastrophe that that became Afghanistan.
Reporting in Washington, I'm Basil John.
Federal courts, state courts, even the U.S. Supreme Court have been busy with significant rulings affecting Tennesseans. State Capitol reporter Chris O'Brien explores the issue.
It's been a series of both wins and losses for the LGBTQ community this summer in Tennessee.
The last couple of weeks have been a roller coaster.
Ray Holloman is transgender and chairs up the Tennessee Transgender Task Force. He transitioned about 7 years ago.
I was like, maybe I'll be comfortable just being a very masculine lesbian, and I just was like, nope, this isn't it. I need to transition and be able to really feel like I am truly myself, and so that's why, and I've not looked back and been happier ever since then.
In June, federal courts in Tennessee paused new laws restricting drag and gender-affirming care for minors, but at the same time, the Supreme Court ruled that businesses could refuse to serve LGBTQ customers in some cases. And a federal judge dismissed a lawsuit seeking to allow Tennesseans to change the sex designations on their birth certificates.
It's just kind of like we win a couple, we lose a couple, and I think that's this battle we keep seeing, but I think ultimately we're going to come out on top.
National Republicans have lauded the Supreme Court decision, while state and local Republicans have condemned other decisions from federal judges.
All we're saying is just leave kids out of this. And so I'm disappointed in that aspect of the judge's ruling. I'm particularly disappointed that there's not even been a factual finding on these issues yet.
When it comes to the gender-affirming care ban, a federal judge left in place a ban on surgical procedures. He also left in place the opportunity for lawsuits against doctors, but took out criminal penalty aspects of the law.
I'm hoping that the fact that that civil liability provision still remains, that a doctor is going to think very long and hard before they prescribe these very harmful drugs to these kids.
Naturally, Holloman disagrees.
Being able to transition is life-saving care. Like, I was depressed for so many years because I just didn't fit in. I didn't feel like I was like something was wrong.
In Nashville, Chris O'Brien.
Air travel has become difficult. Passengers have been left stranded at airports across the country, and a worker shortage is partly to blame. Some airlines are now relying on a little-known immigration policy to help.
There is a huge pilot shortage in the United States. It's no secret.
So some airlines are now relying on what's called the National Interest Waiver. It allows non-citizens to get a green card without having a guaranteed job, especially pilots.
Some retired, some found other professions. So what was an issue became a dire issue.
Ernesto Betrago is an immigration attorney. He said he's helping 200 pilots work through the waiver program.
They're overworked and underpaid in a lot of these other countries. Colombia, for example.
That's where Nicholas Uribe is from.
I think it's a great opportunity to an industry which is actually growing and growing.
He was just approved for a national interest waiver and should be in the United States in a few months.
We all think that the United States is a great country, and I personally know that I will have like very good opportunities there.
And the political situation in Colombia is complicated.
Politically speaking, the country is right now going through a changing process, which could be seen like a little bit unstable from outside.
His response to anyone who's concerned about people like him flying their plane: he received an associate's degree at Broward College, is currently studying for his bachelor's of aeronautics, and has been flying planes for 15 years.
We're like a bunch of pilots with experience as well flying to the United States many times.
Now to our This Week cover story. Tennessee takes another big step toward expanding passenger rail service, but the process is nowhere close to being finished. State Capitol reporter Chris O'Brien shares a new study that says passenger rail could give Tennessee an economic boost.
We are currently also awaiting a study done by TASSER, our Commission for Intergovernmental Relations in the state, to look at potential corridors that make the most sense to do that.
That was TDOT Commissioner Butch Ely back in January talking about passenger rail. But now that study has arrived, and it finds intercity passenger rail service could help increase connectivity and facilitate tourism and other economic development initiatives in Tennessee.
We are the second most automobile dependent city in the country. And guess what city's first? Memphis. So Tennessee definitely is greatly in need of rail service.
The study lays out several routes in order of priority. The top priority is Nashville to Chattanooga and on to Atlanta. Second priorities are Memphis to Nashville and Chattanooga to Knoxville to Bristol. The final tier sees Memphis to Carbondale, Illinois, then up to Chicago, and Nashville to Louisville.
The appetite is out there for something bigger that can get us off the roads, especially when we're looking at a 60% increase in the time that we're sitting in traffic over the next decade.
Of course, the massive TDOT package the legislature passed this year will help, but with Tennessee's massive growth, rail could certainly be a player moving forward. And there are still a lot of factors at play. There has to be cooperation from rail and train companies and agreement from lawmakers on routes and funding. But this step from Tassier is a big one.
It's certainly on the table and something that we're going to keep on the table and look at the possible options.
TDOT did give us an updated statement that read in part, it will require participation from several stakeholders such as Amtrak, FRA, bordering states, and coordination efforts between our rail partners, as passenger rail would likely operate on the same lines that handle freight traffic. Over the next several months, we will be engaging these interested parties as we incorporate the findings into our updated statewide rail plan.
And stay with us. This week continues. And when we come back, a conversation with Nashville mayoral candidate Jim Gingrich.